All right, welcome back. I've got a Blu Ray update of some things I bought during Black Friday, a partial list. I try to do these updates after I've watched everything, so it's kind of taking me a bit longer than just showing you what I bought. Uh, but first up, we've got the Severin bundle, part of the Severin bundle, which was Mondo Bellardo and the Wild World of Jane Mansfield. First up is Boris Karloff hosting Mondo Bellardo, which is kind of a world tour trip of sexual type deviancies. Although, quite honestly, there's nothing really particularly deviant about this. It's pretty boring in spots. It's I mean it's odd to hear Boris Karloff talk about all these different sexual type things. It just feels really weird. Knowing him as the cultured man that he was. But it goes from jungle type orgies to strip type scenes in a European strip club, things like that. But it's relatively tame. There's also a really dull additional bonus movie on here called The Orientals, which was a slog to get through, quite honestly. And then next up, The Wild World of Jane Mansfield, which is a bunch of news clips of James Mansfield touring different parts of the world, going to get pedicures and manicures and massages and going to see, actually going to strip clubs. She was a beautiful woman, but the film is, it's interesting. If you like Jane Mansfield, you're going to really enjoy it. If you don't know about her or not interested in her, it's gonna be a slog to get through, quite honestly. It ends with her tragic car accident crash nearby where I live. Actually, maybe it was either in Slidell, which is about off of I-10, or in Biloxi, which is all that's within an hour of me. So, but yeah, the scenes of her car crash was horrible. She had kind of a domineering representative. The guy that was driving in the car with her was kind of her domineering agent, and he died as well. But it was interesting. I actually found it very interesting. I actually enjoyed it. And there's also an additional film on here as well, which was a slog to get through. But decent release. It was part of the bundle. I probably wouldn't have bought it except it was part of that bundle. Next up is a classic film from years gone by, and that's Bela Lugosi and the Human Monster. This was a Bela Lugosi plays two roles, Dr. Orloff, and then he plays a blind guy running a kind of a house for indigent people, that type of thing. But the kindly Dr. Orloff has some sinister goings on where he's securing insurance policies on people and then bumping them off. It's an Edgar Wallace story. Bela Lugosi was great in it. He's such an underrated actor. This is one of his best acting roles, I think. This release has, I think this is a VCI release. Let me see here. Yeah, it's a VCI release. You've got two commentary tracks, one by Bela Lugosi expert Gary Rhodes, and then David Duvall's on another track, and it's got some liner notes. Really nice release. I enjoyed it. Next up is a Joe D'Amato film from 1977, Emmanuel in America. And boy, this is a rough movie. I don't know. It's basically a softcore porn film with Laura Gemsler, but then it turns into she discovers basically a snuff operation going on. And I tell you what, the snuff scenes were brutal. I mean, I watch horror all the time, but I don't know. This one got to me. It was really just kind of put me off. I mean, it's a brutal watch. The last 20 minutes of this thing, really distasteful. I mean, Joe D'Amato knows how to do a snuff film. I will give him that. Rough stuff. Wasn't a big fan of it, honestly. I gave it I think I gave it a 7 out of 10, which is, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. This has, I wanted to say, it does not, well, I know now why I bought this. So, it does have an audio commentary by Bruce Holchak and Nathaniel Thompson, but what I bought it for was a feature-length documentary on Joe D'Amato. So I think it's worth the purchase just for that. Next up is Revenge of the Living Dead Girls. This is another Severin Black Friday release. I really like this French film. This is a French film from 1987, directed by a guy named Piers Reinhard. And he mainly did porn. It's a bunch of guys that did porn that decided to try to do something that crossed the periphery to normalcy. Although there's nothing normal about this, and there's some really disturbing scenes, particularly with the women who capture another woman and torture her in more ways than I really want to describe. It's a rough film, but it's a very good film. The only thing I didn't like about it was the ending. I thought the ending was a cop out, but I still give it I think I gave this one a 6 out of 10 as well. 6.5 out of 10. This has the soundtrack. There's some really good music in this film. Surprisingly effective, gory film with a not so great ending is what I would tell you. This has an interview with the director, an interview with the special effects artist Benoit Lestang. So yeah, this was definitely one I recommend. Next up is a Tygon release from the Black Friday sale, and that's The Beast in the Cellar. Very tame film. Basically, you've got a World War II refugee who the family is kept in an attic, and as you can imagine, if you're kept in an attic for say 20 years, what might you do and look, but very tame. It was kind of a slog to get through, honestly, but I'd never seen it before. As much as I've watched all these British horror films, this is one that kind of escaped my attention, so I was glad to check it out, but it's not one that I was particularly enamored with. This has interviews with the producer Tony Tenser and director Piers Haggard. And by the way, Piers Haggard also directed What the Peepers Saw, which is really kind of a bizarre film as well. Next up is Midsommar. Ari Aster directed Hereditary, which I think is a 10 out of 10, one of the best horror movies of the decade, in my opinion. This was an interesting follow-up, very much analogous to The Wicker Man. I thought it was too long. I thought it had some beautiful scenery. I thought it was shot well. I thought it was an engaging story. It's kind of a depressing story, quite honestly. But it was just for being 2.5 hours. I thought it was too self-indulgent. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I probably would have given it an 8.5 out of 10 had it been cut down a little bit as far as the running time. I thought it overstayed its welcome, but I liked it. Next up is Pigs. This is a Vinegar Syndrome purchase that I had not purchased. I'm not sure why, but I decided to partake with the new slipcover once it came out with the new slipcover. This is a film with Mark Lawrence and his daughter Toni Lawrence, and Toni Lawrence plays a kind of a crazy woman that's apparently killed off her father, and she gets involved with this guy that takes care of her but basically protects her and hides her from these killings that are going on, and they're feeding the victims to the pigs. So it's a really, really good grindhouse 70s film. I think it was made 72. Yeah, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. As far as special features on this one, we had an audio commentary. It's a scan of the 2K scan from the 35mm interpositive. It's got a featurette with actress Toni Lawrence. the composer Charles Bernstein, and then a feature-length interview with the cinematographer Glenn Rowland. And actually, it started out slow listening to him talk about the films that he's done, but it really got very engaging. I would encourage you, if you bought this, to check out that audio interview with Glenn Rowland, because he really has done some interesting films, and it picks up very, very much after, say, 20 minutes into the thing. It really picks up steam, so recommend that highly. All right. Next up is another Vinegar Syndrome that I just didn't pick it up when it first came out, and so I got it now with the nice slipcover. Luther the Geek. Luther the Geek, directed in 1980 by Carlton Albright, who, this is all he ever did. He was a guy from Iowa that was hoping to make a bit of money making a film, and I thought he did a great job with this film. It's a shame he didn't do anything else. The Geek is Luther the Geek is a strange character that bites the heads off of chickens and becomes a serial killer. Strange movie. It's a strange movie, but very, very good. I would highly recommend it. The guy that plays Luther the Geek, Edward Terry, this was his only film role. I guess he got out of the film. There was some discussion about it in the audio commentary that he just decided to move on and do other things. As far as extras, it's got it's a 2K scan of the 35 millimeter, commentary with the director, an interview with actor Jerome Clark, and a video introduction, Carlton Albright. So that's Luther the Geek. Let's see what else we got here. I think that's going to do it. I think that's going to do it for this Blu-ray update. If you've seen any of those films or have any comments below, feel free to leave them. Appreciate you watching. Thanks.